Good evening, everyone. I am Nicholas J. Orcutt with the Fractured Line. This is Status Check with everybody. I hope everybody's having a great evening. Kelly Nikta, it's Greek for good evening. Um, I am excited today because I actually get to talk to somebody who is very different than most people I talk to. And it's somebody who I'm hoping that I can emulate a little bit of the way that they view the world. I want to introduce my guest today. I'll let her introduce herself because she's got the accreditations to do way more than I do. So by all means.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. I am actually really excited to be here. My name is Heidi Wall-Giesbrecht. I am from the Vancouver, Canada area. It is a beautiful, warm day out here today where I'm a couple of hours ahead of you, or behind you, I guess, Nicholas. So we still have beautiful sunshine and hot weather. I am a therapist in training. I work full time, which for a therapist is not 40 client hours, but a number of client hours, and I do all my own admin. I'm also a mom and a partner. I have 4 young adults who live at home with me. They are all autistic and ADHD. And we discovered in the process of figuring that out that my partner is also ADHD. And so my home is a pretty interesting and fun place to be. And yeah, I think I write here on Substack at Encouragement Along the Journey. And I think part of what we may talk about is exactly that today. I had to choose a website link, and I was like, what do I want to do? My name is complicated, it's spelled funny, and Encouragement Along the Journey. I was like, yeah, this is what I seek to show up as in life in general. And so it seemed a good handle as a website link, and thus my Substack. So,
I mean, the familiarity with people with, autism and ADHD is probably why I appreciate your writing as much as I do.
uh,
It is absolutely insightful.
mm,
I kind of buried the lead going in, but me and you, we talk about a lot of the same differences. There's what happens, how we handle it.
yeah,
And I look at it so I look at the world, and when I report things, I do it from, there's an oppressor, and, obviously there's the rage element of people, and you look at it past that. And that's the part that with your writing and everything really took me aback, that you can look past that to actually, like, instead of it being things are negative and bad and everything's out to get you, you carry a level of hope with everything.
mm,
And it's absolutely outstanding.
mm,
I've enjoyed it. It's one of those things, and I use this word very infrequently. It's healing
mm.
for me, for somebody who, again, I'll be knee deep in reading the Epstein files, and I can turn on to your stuff, and I'm like, okay, you know what? The world's not all shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Yeah.
you're in BC. Are you a Canucks fan?
Not really.
Oh, the only
I
reason I know.
enjoy the occasional game. I used to be a fan years ago, and then I guess I did a little bit of the all or nothing. There was a strike, and they were like petitioning for more money, and it was just really ridiculous. And I'm like, there's people who don't have enough food to eat, and you think you need more money. And I was like done with hockey, and I was like an avid fan prior to that. So yeah.
I genuinely did the exact same thing. I know the strike you're talking about because I thought the
Mm.
same thing. I said, this is ridiculous.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
no, growing up in Syracuse, we have a minor league hockey team,
Mm.
and the team actually, when they started they were the farm team for the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah.
And so I was really familiar with the Canucks.
Yeah.
Um, it was just a small, like, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Um, so you have 4 adults that live in your house that are all neurodivergent.
Well, technically 5 young adults and my partner. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That is a caseload being home by itself.
Yeah. It's genuinely, I love my household. Like, it's not always all fun and games, but I have learned so much from my family. Like, my work caseload tends to be a lot of neurodiversity, families, kids, parents, teachers. And I think part of it is because I have the personal experience piece that comes along of like, yeah, I know what that feels like. And I've also had the benefit of learning from my kids and my husband, things that work for them, things that don't work for them. And just, I was talking to someone today about the ways in which my partner has changed my life for the better, that I wouldn't have said this at the beginning, but I remember, him calling me out early on in terms of like, how could I have known that if you didn't tell me? And I was like, well, because this is what you do when you're in a relationship. Like you look and you pay attention to what matters to the other person, and then you do it. And he's like, well, I'm not a mind reader. How would I have known? And I remember being shocked at that. Like, what? Like, how could you not know? Like, did you miss all the signals? And he's like, what signals?
Me and my wife have had that same conversation
Nice.
a handful of
Yeah.
times.
Well, it ended up being like this painfully revolutionary moment for me where I realized like, okay, my family maybe isn't everybody's norm. And growing up, having to pay attention to emotions and what people might be feeling and making assumptions about them and then changing your behavior based on that. Not everybody does that. And so it actually, although it was uncomfortable at the beginning, I've described it as like there's a freedom in my house that whoever is here can just show up as themselves. There's no expectations that you have to know what's going on. If something is bothering you, you can just say it and we can all talk about it. Like so it's been this incredibly freeing thing where I'm now at the point where I'm like, I wish everyone communicated the way my neurodivergent family does. Like, I think life could be a lot easier. We do it kindly, like there's kindness and respect and basic human dignity. And it's also direct. Like it is what it is, and we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, I've had to learn. I've had to learn many a times that I have to when I talk to somebody, especially like when I would be professionally working in the back of an ambulance. I'd talk to people,
Yeah.
and I would tell them things. And to me, I'm just relaying information. I'm just telling you X, Y, or Z.
Right.
The amount of people that would say I am condescending,
Oh,
and I'm like, I'm not. I'm just not
yeah.
emoting with my voice because I'm telling you a fact. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to be
Yeah.
mean. Um, and it's a struggle when you're this way and you
Yeah.
don't handle that well. It
Yeah.
becomes a serious struggle with that.
Well, and it's interesting because I think, so I'm gathering your ADHD is,
Oh yeah.
yeah, got it. Okay.
Oh yeah.
And I think the challenge often is that when you are someone who's neurodivergent, you begin to think that you're the problem, where I actually think it's how we communicate as humans that is the problem. Because what you just described there is somebody making an assumption about what's going on for you. Like you are being condescending rather than, hey, the way that you just said that felt really condescending. Like, was that what you intended? Which honestly, like if we could all communicate like that, like to notice when we're making an assumption and then to check it, I'd say like 80% of our problems would be easily resolved.
Oh, without a doubt. Like without a
Yeah.
doubt. And that's why it's, and my son's the same way I am. And,
Mm,
just being on the spectrum and ADHD,
yeah.
and he's young
Yeah.
enough that they don't want to medicate him or anything yet. They
Yeah.
don't want to put him through the testing because he just turned 7. I
Okay.
see every single thing I did with him. And so I
Yeah.
worry because I know how hard school was and
Oh,
interacting with
yeah.
people. And my wife's
Yeah.
elementary teacher who does what's called the combination classrooms. So she has like
Oh,
special needs
okay.
kids
Yeah.
um, and she's very good at thinking, or she's very good at the way to communicate and understand like myself and my son. And she's good at
Mm,
taking information that we don't necessarily register the proper way and delivering it in a way that I don't feel like it's, that I can absorb it. It's not, I'm
mm,
not combative against it.
yeah.
And that tends to be usually what the biggest problem is with like me and my son. We're just combative against that information. You can tell me
Yeah.
something, but explain it to me so I can actually visualize it and see how it works. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah, one of the strategies that Rich and I, so Rich is my partner, one of the strategies that we've figured out that works really well for us, we've called it lead with intent. And it's just the idea that if either one of us is going to start a conversation with the other, that we start by telling the other person what our intention is, rather than waiting for them to read between the lines. And it's definitely helped. Like I tell a funny story about socks of like when we were first married, he would take his socks off and just leave them on the floor. And then ADHD, once they're there, he doesn't see them anymore. And so then I'd be picking them up. And with every sock I picked up, I'd be like angrier and angrier as I'm like hucking them into the, laundry hamper. And I remember, talking about the socks. And we had already started learning some of these strategies. So it was like, hey, I love you and I don't want to be with anyone else. I really value our relationship. And because of that, there's something that's been bothering me that I can't not say because it's actually going to harm us. When you take your socks off, can you put them in the laundry basket? And it's like, right. It's such a big thing for such a little thing. But the part of it was like, I'm going to tell you why I'm doing this because then it doesn't have to feel like an attack that says you're such a dirty slop. You leave your socks all over the place. Like
yeah.
instead it's this is something that's impacting me. And as a result, it's affecting our connection. So you need to know about it. Your socks are in the way.
That's a couple of years ago, me and my wife started doing this thing where we agreed to have those conversations almost like that.
Yeah.
And we will have the conversations that will make each other feel uncomfortable at times or make us feel
Yeah.
uncomfortable to bring it up. And I'll tell you, we started that back in 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that my marriage has been stronger than it's ever been. She went from being my partner to like, she's my best friend. Like I tell her, I can tell her the things that, would make it's, and it's not make the person uncomfortable. You know how it's make you uncomfortable. You don't want to say the things that you think are going to hurt somebody. But we've gotten to that point where we can actually communicate with each other and say, I'm not trying to be insulting. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. I'm just trying to let you know where I'm coming from and where my feelings are.
Yeah.
And that's been so like just revolutionary to me.
Yeah.
Especially I'm of the age that I grew up feelings were gay. That was how we were taught. And so it's been just revolutionary and healing to me to be able to be a human being and not have to try to portray what a man is. I can just be a human.
Yeah.
And it's been wonderful.
Yeah. Well, that's the crazy thing about emotions, right? Like we, whether we're taught that emotions are a gay thing or whether we're taught that certain emotions are not okay. Like a lot of people grow up thinking like anger is not okay. Or, some people have a really strong thing about like, I can't show sadness. I can't show tears. Like I'm not allowed to cry. And I always say like emotions are just messengers. They're just indicators that something is going on. And if we can start to welcome them and just say, oh, hey, there's an emotion here. That's kind of interesting. Why did that emotion pop up now? What is actually going on? It allows us to pay attention to what is actually being communicated. And so, I would say with anger in particular, when people say, oh, well, I don't want to be angry. It's like, well, how could you not be angry? Like anger is such a normal response emotions that it comes up when something has been unexpected. It didn't turn out the way we thought, when there's been a loss of some sort, when we see something that isn't fair or just. Like anger is a very, very natural response. And it's not about never being angry, but it's about figuring out how do I acknowledge the emotion of anger and then how do I handle myself in a way that doesn't use it in harmful ways, right? It's not about not being angry. It's about not using your anger to hurt people.
I mean, that is as true as it is, it's hard to learn that though. It took years to learn it's okay to be a person.
It's good to be human.
I do have to admit, when I first was reading all your stuff, I thought you said that you were a former meteorite. and I was really upset that you were not from outer space. Um,
Well, some people might think I am, but
but you were a former Mennonite.
uh,
Um, I've actually, I used to work with she's a medic. I don't know if she's still a medic, but she was actually still a Mennonite as a medic. And it is a fascinating world because it's the same world, but such a different culture.
mhm.
How does that work with the Mennonite background and doing what you do now?
Hmm. Well, I mean, I'm Mennonite by birth.
Mhm.
My family, like people are always like, "Where's your family from?" And I'm like, "Well, Prussia." Everyone's like, "Where's Prussia?" It doesn't exist. I
Yeah.
mean, we're kind of Northern European, some kind of Swabish area, a little bit of Holland mixed in. It's like a little mishmash of, kind of all over Europe. And so, growing up, I mean, my grandparents lived in Russia. A number of generations of my family lived in Russia until like 1929 is when a lot of them got out of Russia. Some of the family did not, and there are like family members that never got to see each other again. Like my grandma's
Oof.
twin sister did not get out, and my grandma did, and they never saw each other again. And so, my family ended up in South America, and so I was actually born in South America, and then we moved here when I was 4, and yeah, I mean, I grew up in the middle of Vancouver, so big city, but our church was a very very close knit community where I know one of my recent, well, actually, I've been working on a book on the side. That's where I was writing this, but just like everything was in that community. We went to our German bakery just down the street, and there was the German bookstore, and there was, the German butcher. And it was like this little German community, and a lot of people were Mennonite. Not everyone was, some were like European German, but there was like this connection. And um, in a lot of ways, I feel like it probably buffered me growing up because um, it, you know, provided me with a community and a sense of belonging, and also some definite guidelines about behavior. And, some of those I've had to kind of unlearn and relearn in healthier ways. That's been part of my own personal journey. But there's still a lot, that I take from that is really valuable. And, I always think like any experience we have in life, wherever we come from, whatever we learn, whatever our training is, if we can integrate it with who we are, it actually becomes something that can be really valuable. And so for me, I think, where, um, yeah, where some of that, someone said to me today, like the fact that you as a Mennonite said to me, it's okay to feel angry, that felt really significant because Mennonites are
Oh,
like against war, right?
yeah.
And I was like, yeah, but emotions are human. Like we all have emotions.
Oh,
So I don't know if
absolutely.
I've answered your question, but yeah,
No, it's a. I mean, no matter where your background is, it's part of who builds you as a person, right?
yeah,
Um, I wouldn't be where I am today without both the good and bad of what I went through and who
yeah,
I've been. Um,
yeah.
I so you're still, and this is you just self-described as an introvert,
Mhm.
and I have been talking to you for at 15 to 20 minutes now. You're not introvert. You're not an introvert. You are a very outgoing person. I think you might have to adjust that.
Well, I used to think I was an extrovert, and I realized I light up around people and I enjoy people, and I really, really need decompressed time after people. Um, and so I think how I am replenished is I'm probably more of an ambivert, maybe not a total like quiet introvert. If you ran into me at a party, I would be on the edges. I'd probably be connecting with the people who are feeling left out, who don't have anyone to talk to, and I would find one person and have a one-on-one conversation with them. So this might be a little bit of a unique setup for seeing a different
If
side
you
of
ran
me.
into me, if you ran into me in a party, then you are in the wrong spot because I don't go to parties. I don't like people. Like I hate crowds. Um,
Ugh.
not a crowd person at all. Um,
Mm,
so you've been doing this for 30 years. And the one thing that
yeah.
stood out to me, and we talked about this a little before we went live. You have been in a room with people who basically share the worst parts of what they are with you, looking for help, looking to get better. Um, I've 15 years in an ambulance, so I've seen the worst parts of people, and yet
Yeah.
we have
Mm,
such different overall viewpoints on
mm,
the where it can go and what can come from that. And to me, that's absolutely wonderful. The fact that
mm,
you can do a job where people just dump out who they are on you and you don't go insane is mind boggling to me. And then on top of that, just to be able to stay as positive as you are is just outstanding.
mm. Yeah. I think when I think of people, um, I believe that everybody has value. Like no matter who you are, no matter where you've come from, you matter because you're a human being. Doesn't mean I have to like everything about you. It doesn't mean everything you're doing is right, but I believe that as a human being, you matter, and that does get tricky sometimes when people are, yeah, not showing their best sides, right? Like we see
Right.
a lot of that going on in the world right now. Um, and yet I I have yet to meet someone who is spurred on to get better by being torn down. Um, I think all of us are spurred on to being better by people believing in us. And so whoever shows up in my office, I want to hold hope for them, and I want to hold deep hope for them that they too can get through whatever it is that they're facing, and that they have value, because a lot of times people come from a place of having message after message after message of you suck, you're broken, this is what's wrong with you. And um, that's really, it's hard. And when you, I mean, sometimes you're fortunate that someone breaks through that and is there to say like, I believe in you. But some people genuinely have never had someone who believes in them. And so for me, that feels like a huge responsibility that I carry, is like when someone shows up in my office, if all I can give them is the knowledge that they matter, that might be more than any intervention that I use. Um,
I think I mean, that is an outstanding worldview. I'm jealous. I don't,
mm,
I'm jealous that it took you telling me to get there. No, but you're not wrong. And that is, I go back to my own, of course you say this, I go back to my own. I've always said when
yeah,
I was going through school, I was always
yeah,
told that I was going to be a failure. I was a kid who
oh,
didn't pay attention and all this. Um, I'm
yeah,
40 and I'm from New York. I'm in New York now too.
okay.
Um, it was not a kind place for somebody who was
Mm,
on the spectrum and ADHD back then. I was just told I was emotionally disturbed,
oh,
and I was not treated pleasantly. Um,
yeah,
and so it was I genuinely feel exactly what you're saying, and it's
yeah,
just it is it is revolutionary that you can view it that way, and I'm genuinely envious. Um,
mm,
I hope that at some point I can get to that point too, where I can
yeah,
hope for the best for people no matter what, because that is
yeah,
outstanding.
yeah. Okay, this feels off topic, but I'm going to show you a book because I think you might want to get this. It's like it's the best book. Okay, can we see it? There we go. Okay, it's called Everyone Has a Sam, and it's about the critical voice. And the author names her critical voice Sam. And she does just this beautiful job of like showing where Sam came from and how Sam has this very deep, deep history in her family, because she's not the only one who has a Sam. Her mom had a Sam and her grandma had a Sam. And so it goes on to kind of unpack it. But it's a fantastic book that just helps make sense of how some of what we bring with us, well, some of what we bring with us is there for a reason. And it's often like things start as protective, right? And
Oh,
so,
absolutely.
I think even as you're describing that, having kind of a pessimistic outlook on the world, I'm thinking that probably came from somewhere. Like it probably was, something that actually helped you survive things.
Well,
And
it's also a
so,
New York state of mind.
right. I
Yeah.
know I am from Canada,
Yeah.
please.
New York is, we always say New York is like the best place in the world. It is only the best place in the world if you're from New York, because you understand that somebody looking at you and saying, go fuck yourself, is somebody saying, how are you doing?
Right.
It's, it's not a, it's not the friendliest place if you don't know how to interpret it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But thank you for the book, because I can tell you, if I don't end up getting it, I know my wife will,
Mm.
because she's going to go,
I
oh,
love it. I've been thinking like, I want to reach out to her name's Rosie Greenberg. And I'm like, I want to reach out to Rosie and see if she'd be willing to do a live. I think that
oh,
would be
absolutely.
fascinating.
That
Yeah.
would.
Yeah.
So you had written something,
Yeah.
and it kind of almost goes back to what we're talking about now. You wrote that the world rewards certainty, outrage, performance, and quick
Mm.
conclusions.
Hmm.
And this is genuinely like, when I read this, I had to stop when I was reading it,
Mm.
because every part of what I write and what I do is about certainty, outrage, and I go for the receipts. I need the proof. I need
Yeah.
everything. And yours is about building that opposite with like accountability on trust, almost, is the way I
Hmm.
took from it. Or not
Mm.
accountability on trust, but just that instead of having to do everything performatively and based on just that quick burst of everything, it was that slow build, I guess, that building
Mm.
bridges, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Hmm.
And that genuinely made me stop when I read it, because I was like,
Mm.
oh, she's talking to me.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so growing up in a Mennonite community, someone in the chat, I've caught a couple of things. Oh, there's another. Oh, yeah, it was more than poetry. Said hello, Mennonite here, and also commented that Mennonite women learn how to mask very early. Um, and I think growing up in a Mennonite community, there were a lot of things that were really good about it. And then, like I said, there's some things I had to unlearn. And one of them was this sense of certainty. And we have it right and we know exactly how it needs to be. And it's probably a little bit of that, like, ethnic European determination coming in. But recognizing, like, when things started coming my way in my own life that stepped outside that box, it really made me challenge it. And for me, it started young. Like, I've had a number of really significant losses in my life through death. And the first one was when I was around 7 years old. And it was one that no one would have known was as significant as it was. And I didn't have words to share it. So I carried it by myself. And then it was compounded when I lost my grandma when I was 12. And so as these things started to happen that were no longer easy to put into boxes, I had to start figuring things out. Like, how do I make it through? And why is this happening? Like, am I doing something wrong? Because if I just did it the right way, then this wouldn't happen. And and then, as we moved through life, and my own family has been on this learning journey where it started with neurodiversity. And then when my oldest was 16, they showed up in our room one night and said, Mom and Dad, I have to tell you something. And we're like, okay. And it's like, I'm asexual and non binary. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, how
I
does that impact me?
I,
Um,
I interviewed somebody who was asexual, non-binary, and
I saw part of that. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm awesome person.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to understand the concept because it
Yeah.
just is such a foreign concept.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. And I mean, the good thing was that Rich and I had had conversations. The reason I was drawn to him was because he was willing to have these deep, meaningful conversations that other people in my life seemed to not be interested in having. And before we even had kids, we would talk about what would happen if, and it was like, what would happen if our kids did something horrible? What if they ended up in jail, right? Like, okay, what would we do? What if, and here's the big one. What if they came home and said, "Hey mom, we're pregnant."
That
Like
is.
that's right. Like that was the biggest concern we had. And,
I have an
but
11-year-old daughter. That is my nightmare.
Uh, okay, so we had lots of conversations about that. Like, okay, those are the things that come to mind, but like, whatever it is, it could be something that we haven't even thought of yet. When they come home and they tell us something that we are not expecting to hear, how do we want to react? And both of us were like, well, whatever it is it going to change the fact that they're our kid? No. Um, Once we allow a child into our life, are we ever going to stop loving them? No. And so we were like, okay, whatever they bring home to us, our response to them is going to be, we love you, this changes nothing, and we'll get through this together. And so that night, there was like, okay, what does that mean? Can you give me a little more information? And then it was like, we love you, and thanks for coming to tell us. And then once our kid left, we're like, what do we do with that? Right? Like now we need somewhere to process this. So,
Yeah.
coming out of a very conservative religious community, that was huge, right? Like, how do you process something that has just not been part of your experience at all?
Was your
And
husband part of that
so,
community?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, he
So it's
was
not
as
like you
well.
were alone. You had to deal with. Yeah.
No,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, a lot of our conversation was around how do we deal with this? And at the beginning, it was just the two of us just talking with each other, and life kind of went on as normal. It took some time before we were like, who are safe people to talk to about this? And when I say safe people, there were actually people, and this is like I wrote a piece from Fence to Field, or something along. I forget exactly what I titled it, but it had fence and field in the title. But one of the challenges I found was I didn't want to go to people from my church community because I felt like they would have one very specific opinion and they would try to like enforce that. But I also didn't want to. I've got a wide range of friends, and I have lots of friends who actually like are atheists, have never had anything to do with the church, and that's fine, right? Like we're friends, it's good. But I also didn't want to go to them because I felt like, oh, they're going to be like, rah, rah, this is wonderful. And I honestly was just feeling really darn confused, right? And so I'm like, who can let me just be here and not push me one way or another, but just let me sit with the I don't know of this whole thing. And so it took a while of just, sitting in that with my partner. And eventually we started to find a few people where they knew how to hold space for us. Like they could just let us talk about it. They didn't need to convince us, they didn't need to tell us what we needed to think. They could just allow us to be. And for me, that was really helpful. It wasn't the first time I had come up against something like this, but it was definitely probably the most recent time and probably the most shifting time. Like I would say um, all the other times where I had come up against this certainty question, there had been a little bit of a shift, but this was like the biggest shift of saying, you know what, like maybe it's okay not to know. And it doesn't mean I'm going to stay in a place of not knowing it forever. Sometimes I might. There might be elements of it that I just go, yeah, I just don't know, and I'm going to let it be. And there might be other parts of it where I'm like, yeah, this is something that I've moved to a different place in understanding. But I think for me, some of the writing recently has been around that piece because it does feel like there is I don't know, there's just so much harshness in the world. And I think harshness often comes from, this is the way I see it, and you better not see it differently than me, because then we can't have anything to do with each other and you are wrong. Um, and frankly, when it comes to wanting world peace, that's not going to be the way to get it.
No, no. And I think actually you a good part of like what you like a good underlining part, and it's actually one of the things like when I talked to Maya, I said about her, I think a significant portion of the mistrust or the LGBTQ plus like hatred that you get that's just
Mm,
prevalent,
yeah,
and it drives me up a wall on the simple fact that it is a scapegoat for not understanding or not being able to understand.
yeah, yeah.
But I also can't blame. I'm all, I like to blame the bigoted people for it, but at the same time,
Mm,
I understand there's a fear to ask.
mhm,
There's that
mhm.
fear of knowing. Um, Now, how's your child do with being able to answer questions about it with people?
Oh, yeah, fantastic. My
Yeah.
my well, my kids are such amazing advocates for disability, for yeah, LGBTQ, for the queer community. Um, just it's one of the things that I really deeply, deeply, deeply admire about my kids is they are so good at not othering people. And I think that's part of what you were kind of touching on
Yeah.
there is it's very easy to make someone the other. And it can be really easy to kind of stand on our high horse and say, well, I'm not othering, you're the one that's, and it's like, yeah, but in attacking you, I actually am. And
Yeah.
so but that doesn't mean we don't call things out, right? And I think that's where we walk this fine line of we call out things and we have to call out evil when we see it, right?
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
and I've read some of your stuff and I know you do a really good job of highlighting some of that and bringing awareness and we can't say, oh, this thing that's happening, it's really not that bad. Like that's minimizing and that is not okay.
Yeah.
We do need to call things out, but can we do them in a way that keeps in mind that no matter how much we might dislike the person on the other side of this, or we might dislike what we see coming from them, that underneath it all, they are actually still a human and they have a story.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. And
yeah,
like as a small anecdote, so my wife, her best friend, get married a woman,
yeah,
and she and her, my wife's best friend and her wife both worked. I think they still work in Broadway. And my wife was the maid of honor, and I wasn't in the I went to the wedding. I wasn't in the wedding, but because my wife's the maid of honor, she's with her best friend the entire time, and it is Broadway people, and they are very Broadway. Uh,
theatrical.
yes,
Love it.
but here I am. I come into the wedding, and I'm just like, if you need me anything, whatever. I felt so. This is how I came to the conclusion with a lot of the bigoted people, because I sat there pretty much the entire night quiet, because here I am, a white Christian straight male. There's nothing I'm going to say to anybody that's going to be helpful. And so I just
Oh,
sat there quietly. And I finally, after everything, and I ended up talking to, this one woman who was, this older lesbian. She was like, you need to calm down. She's like, and she called me right out, like called me right out. And
oh,
after that, I had a good time, but it was that fear of, oh, I represent everything that oppresses these
yeah.
people. I don't,
Yes.
I don't want to be a problem. I'm just going to be quiet
Yeah. Yeah.
to help.
Yeah. That's gosh. And I think I often find myself very aware of um, privilege that I bring into the world by looking the way I do. And sometimes I hate it. And it's interesting because my parents and I lived in Mexico for a couple of years, and we didn't live in like the touristy part of Mexico. We lived like in the mountains in a
Yeah.
little town where we were definitely out of the norm. And it was, kind of the first time in my life where I experienced what it was like to be the minority. But the weird thing about it was, even there, it felt like the privilege was actually even greater than here because we were not seen as the minority. We were seen as the millionaires. And the crazy thing is, here in Canada, we were actually lower class. And it's not like we had a ton of money, but compared to the people around us, we looked like we had a lot of money. And I mean, we weren't living extravagantly. My parents were there teaching, they were there as teachers. And but it really made me super aware of the the responsibility that comes with that. And so I hear what you're saying. Like, I don't want to go into any situation and cause more harm. Like
Oh yeah,
that is,
yeah, and there's just that fear, and so
yeah,
about the privilege, I
yeah,
I I am I don't want to say a weirdly aware person of privilege,
mm,
but one of the downfalls of working in the field I did for so long
mm,
is it is a very alpha male heavy
mm,
white guy field. Um, and I would watch a lot of these guys who don't understand what the concept of privilege is get
mm,
really upset when they were called out on having privilege because to
mm,
them, they didn't understand that privilege wasn't the fact that somebody handed you a new car. It was the
yeah.
fact that when you drove that car off the lot, you didn't get stopped for stealing it.
Oh, yes.
And a lot of, especially in Syracuse is a lower income area.
Okay.
It's not in a, we have a college that is our big, we're Detroit without any sports teams.
Okay.
It's so, it's a lot of white people who grew up trailer park, it's very
Mm,
low income and
mhm,
they get very upset with that, the privilege aspect of
mm,
it because they don't
mhm,
understand it. Most people, when they hear privilege, assume that, by privilege, you're saying I get to do something someone else can't. They
mhm,
don't understand it's keeping any privilege.
mhm,
Being privileged means you just don't have something taken away.
mhm. Yeah, it's interesting. As you were talking, the thought struck me that maybe part of the challenge with privilege is we think in us and them. Like, if I hear privilege and I think it's saying something about me, rather than understanding that privilege is actually saying something about what's going on for the other, it might change how I interact with it, right? Like, if it's not about, oh, you're telling me that I'm really fortunate and I'm really rich, right? Like, no, but you're telling me that life for you feels really hard and it looks really different than it does for me. And so, having that awareness, um, yeah, of just, and I think too, like you said something about story, and I don't remember what you said, but it twigged for me. Like, that is one of my, if I have words on my tombstone, if I have a tombstone, who knows if I will or not, but if I do, I hope story is one of them because I think that people's stories matter so much, and it really is about understanding the other person's story. And I think when it comes to changing our mind about things or about seeing someone's experience differently, when we stop to listen to the story, that's when things start to shift. Like, as long as it's a news headline, we can always explain it away or argue it away. But the moment someone starts to talk about their personal story, we can try arguing it away or minimizing it, but it is their story and it is their experience. And so I think there's something really valuable about hearing people's stories. And honestly, like in the work that I do, it's one of the things that I really deeply value and treasure, being able to hear people's stories and hold them. And it it feels like such an honor to be able to come along and witness that for people. Um,
I
yeah.
mean, yeah, that's you'll find. I always was told, like my yaya was my mother growing up, and she always told that you'll enjoy the world more if you watch it through your ears and your eyes because
Mm, no,
listening,
I love that.
yeah, listening is significantly more important half the time.
Yeah.
Um, and if we're talking about death arrangements, I want to be sent off like Mr. Spock. I want somebody crying, playing the bagpipes while they shoot me into space. Um,
Uh-huh. That's the meteorite coming back to haunt
yeah,
us here.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. That is my one life goal is that's how my death will go. Um,
No.
but the last thing I really had to actually talk to you about
Yeah.
was, you know, I cover my big thing is I like to look at systems that ignore or harm people.
Mm,
You treat people these systems actually hurt.
hmm.
Specifically, like lately, I've been covering the Lindsay Clancy case.
Mm,
Um,
hmm.
that has been, it's been revealing for me because my wife actually got into it. Like it was on her TikTok and she
Yeah.
dove deep. Um, she actually had asked me, she's like, I want you to look into this, and then got mad that I did. She goes, no, you're going to ruin things for me on it. But it, it brought up, and I'm
Mm,
going through all these facts, and she's the one that's like, I'm amazed at how much this story's taken traction. And she goes,
mm,
no, it's not the story. It's women are sick and tired of not being listened to.
mm.
Women are so sick and tired of just being
Yeah.
dismissed.
Yeah.
And that was you cover women being dismissed.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just, it was eye opening for me because I had never, not that I didn't see it, because I guess looking back, I'm like, oh,
Mm,
that makes sense. But it had just
yeah.
never occurred to me, obviously, being a guy, that I think it was like 94% of women say that their doctor ignores them. It was just
Hmm.
mind boggling.
Hmm.
Um, I mean,
Yeah.
how is that on your side? Because you're a woman, but you're also, in the medical field with treating mental health. Like, how is
Yeah.
that for you?
Yeah. Well, I am very fortunate in that my medical team right now is an amazing team that listens to me and supports me. I definitely have also experienced being on the side of not being listened to. Um, One of the things that if you follow along on my Substack, you might have picked up is I've lost a huge amount of weight. Over the past decade, I've lost 120 pounds. Um, and so I spent a lot of my life in a large body, and the assumptions and the things that people think about someone who's in a larger body, like even me being who I am physically today, there's privilege to that. There's privilege in looking the way that I do. But that also means that I've had lots of experiences of people dismissing what I'm saying and not listening to it because there's assumptions that go in. And I think there's, yeah, it's the challenge of we often don't see or understand until we see or understand it, right? Like until something comes into our orbit that shows us that. And I really, really want to be aware of moments where I'm missing something, but I'm human and I know that there are going to be things that I miss. And again, I think the more we listen to stories, the more we understand that. And, when you were talking about women not being listened to, it actually made me think too, just of the way women move through this world, right? Like, I remember talking to my husband about my previous office. We were in a building that when we started in the building, there were a number of different businesses in the building, and then things kind of a few businesses moved out. COVID hit, and by the end of COVID, we were literally the only business in the building. And so I would often be there alone as a therapist in the evening. And I started actually locking all the doors to the building and going down and letting people in between sessions. And
I,
one evening,
I
yeah,
assume it's because you're in Canada and you're afraid somebody's going to come and give you healthcare for free.
yeah, that's it. That's it. And so one evening I come out of the building and I head over to my vehicle, and I had the van. So I had a minivan. And I actually, it wasn't the minivan, it was the Beast, big Ford Transit. And
Okay.
I get back out to the van and I realize that I have not locked the door. Um, and so I've already come down. Even the way I come down to get to my vehicle is I press the elevator button. So it sounds like I'm taking the elevator. And then I walk down the stairs with my keys in my hands, just in case anyone's gotten into the building and I need to protect myself. Then I get downstairs. Now I have to unlock the door in order to be able to set the alarm and then get outside and lock the door. And so I open the door, I look both ways, I come back in, I set the alarm, I go out, I lock the door, I check everything out, I go to my car. My car has been unlocked. It's now dark. And so I'm like, okay, I am not getting into my vehicle. So I open the door, I close the door, I open the back door, I close the door, I open every single door in the vehicle, and then I quickly lock the vehicle. I come back around, I unlock, I get in, I lock it again. And when I got home, I think I was, annoyed that this had happened to me. And Rich was like, okay. And he had this, like he didn't think it was any big deal kind of a look to him. And I was like, do you not understand? And I'm like, what would you have done? And he's like, well, I would have come out of the building and I would have noticed that it was unlocked and I would have been annoyed and I would have gotten in and driven away. And I was like, oh. And so then I said, okay, let me tell you how I left work today. And I gave him that whole story. And I know for him, that was like, you do all of that? And I said, all the time. That was not an unusual thing. I do it all the time. And, for him, he would never have known because he's never had to do it. And so I think, you know, these experiences of recognizing when people are feeling not heard, we don't know until we take time to listen. And I think that's where story is so important because when we listen to people's stories, we become aware that, oh, like, what? Women feel dismissed? What? Like, women experience bias in the medical system? I have a funny story for you on that, actually. I got my first tattoo, which is like super exciting. Never something I thought I would ever do. Yeah, and it's not a small tattoo. It's my entire back, and so I said to my tattoo artist, like, yeah, this is in writing. I'd written her an email, like, hey, just so you know, this is my first tattoo, and so
She knew
we're
by
like,
sending her an email.
probably. So we're like 4 hours into me sitting for this tattoo, and she goes, wait a minute, didn't you say this is your first tattoo? And I said, yeah. And she's like, wow, you're sitting here like a rock. And I'm like, well, isn't that what you're supposed to do? Like, you don't want to move, right? Because you want it to look really good. And so I'm like, okay, whatever. And so there's some other artists in the studio. And as we finish up, they're all like, can we see it? Can we see the final result? And I'm like, yeah, of course. And so one of the other tattoo artists comes over and says, okay, did I hear right that this was your first tattoo? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, that is a badass first tattoo. And I'm like, well, thank you. And she's like, have you had kids? And I'm like, yeah, I have 4 kids. And she goes, oh, no wonder. And I'm like, okay, why are you saying this? And she says, oh, you wouldn't believe how many people scream when we're doing the tattoos. And she's like, there was no sound out of you all day. You just sat there like a rock and you were absolutely fine. And I'm thinking, isn't this what I've been trained to do? Like, I feel like my entire life, when I have pain, I've been like, oh, it's probably not that big of a deal. I'm probably making a big deal out of nothing, right? And I think part of that is we're taught early to shut things down, whether, in our upbringing, society as a whole. I think society gives us some really unhealthy messages about what it is to be human in this world and what it looks like to be male and what it looks like to be female. And I think even by virtue of having to have these binary ways of living, we actually do great harm to ourselves and to others, because if we can all show up as who we are with our strengths and aware of our challenge areas, that's when we really start to flourish. So,
it actually brings up a really good thought. So a lot of my ignorance, I guess, with learning about the things women go through now, I have a daughter, I have a wife, I grew up, my grandmother I didn't have a grandfather, I didn't have a dad. So I grew up with women, only with women. Growing up as a guy surrounded by women, you just don't notice differences for them because you're the different one.
Yeah.
Now that I'm a dad and a husband, it makes me acutely aware of how dangerous the world is for women, just
Mm.
as a basis of the way things are.
Yeah.
And it's sad that it's that way, but it's funny because you said, with that about the gender idea and the privilege, and with that, it almost kind of makes me think, if you could remove that and strip that, think about all the, college kids out there. There's the one kid, I can't remember his name. He's in, I think it was Texas or Virginia, who got caught of, I think it was raping two girlfriends. He beat one, and they
Mm-hmm.
basically got off with like house arrest because white guy in a prominent town.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes me wonder if we took out that gender identity, if that would even exist as much. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You're still going to have sick-minded people who are going to show no value of other people.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder how much that would change if that wasn't,
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
that gender identity, I feel like, is part of that gender identity is, me, he-man, me, big man, you, woman,
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yeah.
and
Well, it's interesting because I think that there are different paradigms that people use to view the world. And I think when you say that, I'm like, yeah, I think that part of it is paradigm related. Like, how do we view the world? And a friend of mine has written a book called When Love Hurts, which is for women who have experienced violence in relationship. And it came out of some research that was done at UBC where they were looking at what makes a healthy relationship and when do you know that there's abuse in a relationship. And it was a difference of paradigm. And so in the relationship where there was abuse, one person was coming from a place of central superior deserving. Like, I deserve to be treated well. My way is the best way. I deserve life to go my way. And what it would leave for their partner is peripheral, inferior, and subservient. And so then they looked at relationships that were healthy and like working well. And what they found was that both people approached the relationship from a paradigm of mutual, equal, connected. And so mutual, it's about both of us. We both matter. We both have value. Both our ideas matter. Equal, no one of us has more value than the other. And then connected, like, we're in this together. We're a team. If I lean, I know that you're there to support me. If you lean, you know I'm there to support you. And so I agree that if we all approach the world with this relational paradigm of mutual, equal, connected, it would change a lot of things.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like, you live in a country where people respect that. I live in a country where we elect a pedophile.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We've got stuff going on here too.
Oh,
Like,
I'm
I
aware.
love Canada, but yeah,
I'm
I'm sure
aware.
you are. Yeah. Yeah.
So now I've taken almost an hour of your time. I do want to thank you for joining
Yeah.
me.
Thank you.
I am going to challenge you. You got to get the wrist tattoos.
Well, I think my next one's actually going to be on my thigh
Ooh.
because having one on my back is like beautiful, but I can't see it. Like, I have to do this in the mirror to like be able to admire it. So
Yeah, so I have all the arms done. It's
yeah. What do you have on your arms? I'm curious.
this one's desert landscape
Ooh.
with
Oh,
my
cool.
wedding flower. My son's first word
Oh,
was triceratops, and the three little birds for my daughter.
I love it.
And this one's all Greek gods:
Wow. That's,
marriage, medicine, and war.
oh my gosh. I love it.
And
Those look
then Star
beautiful.
Wars, all Star
Star
Wars,
Wars. Okay. Perfect.
all Star
Well,
Wars.
I have Hawaii and turtles and hearts,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
But no,
Yeah.
problem is you get one tattoo, you're going to get more. It's just how it works.
So I've been told.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this one took me 20 years to figure out what I wanted. So, talk to me in another 20.
Most of the ones I have, I got on impulse.
As you can tell, I do very little on impulse,
I
except for say, sure, I'll come on your show. No problem. Yeah.
There's a reason that I'm as medicated as I am, and it's to make that impulse control exist. But I do want to thank you for coming. This has
Yeah,
been
thank you.
genuinely fascinating. Like I don't know, like usually I'm a little more attentive of people in here. I've just been literally sitting here listening, just getting like being transported. So I appreciate it. But again, it's an honor. I'll put your Substack up with at the end when I post this on. I'm going to have everybody who's here who doesn't follow you. I genuinely hope they do.
Mm,
It is just such a great way to view the world. You're doing amazing work. Um, please continue doing it. I hope it doesn't interfere with your practice and everything like that, because like what you're doing is helping so many people. Like it has a potential, if your work can get out there, it can make a huge difference in the world.
mm.
And I want to see that
Thank you.
happen.
Yeah. Thank you for your encouragement. It's honestly, this has been a delight. I enjoy conversations and I enjoy talking with people who don't just want to talk about the weather. So um,
I live in
it's been
Syracuse. We don't
delightful.
talk about weather here.
I live in BC. We talk about it all the time. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. All we do is snow or rain. So we like to
yeah.
keep it quiet. But again, thank you
Awesome.
for
Thank
coming.
you. Thank you
And
so much.
to everybody else who's been here, thank you for joining us today. As always, I encourage you to stay loud, stay informed, and stay dangerous. This has been Nicholas Orcutt, and have a great night.
All right. Good night.